So what you see behind me is a bunch of milled lumber, and I am really proud of these stacks of lumber, in part because of the work I put into them. For the most part, I cut these trees down and I milled this wood myself. We've got a bunch of different species. There's some really nice cherry and walnut and oak. We've got Osage orange, just a wide variety. And like I said a minute ago, I'm really proud every time I look at it. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's valuable. Let's take a look at some of this. This stack right here is cherry. I got this from Tennessee when I went and visited my friend Tony from Tony's Tractor Adventure. This is some hedge mixed with a few other things, but that hedge I milled with a chainsaw. Actually, no, I'm not sure if that's it. This down here is definitely the hedge. And when you sand that, it's going to be a beautiful orange color. And all this is dusty and dirty, but it will clean up nice. Now this is oak. This is one of the first trees I ever cut down on my property. It's been drying for a full 2 years. This right here is probably the most valuable wood I have. We've got 3-inch thick walnut. This is that tree that Barber chaired on me, actually. It was a big learning experience. But these top slabs are 1 inch, and the bottom ones are 3-inch. They are, I believe, 16 inches wide and 12 or 14 foot long. That is valuable lumber. The wood in this rack came from some of the same trees as the wood in there. But this is considered waste. It's slab. And a lot of people tell me that the way I cut my logs and the way I run my mill is creating too much slab and wasting some of that nice wood up in there. But I'm not sure if I believe that. This is a firewood tote filled up with that slab wood. And it's not perfect firewood, but it can be sold as firewood, and I burn it as firewood. Not only in my house, but also in open fire pits out here when we're having a cookout or just hanging out in the evening. So this is definitely not waste. It's not worthless. And a lot of people think it's not even worth cutting up and they just burn it in a fire pit or whatever to get rid of it. But I have a little different opinion on it, and that's what I want to talk about today. I guess if I'm going to work in here, it helps to turn on some lights, huh? Still can't get over how bright those high bays are. Now this seems like kind of a silly conversation almost. Which is worth more? Nice milled lumber or slab wood? And for me, I thought that that wasn't even a question. Then I watched a video that's actually, I watched this probably 2 years ago from Mike at Outdoors with the Morgans. And he was talking about being criticized for taking nice straight logs and using them for firewood instead of the sawmill. And he did a long breakdown of how much the boards were worth and how much the firewood was worth. And for him, he got numbers that said it was really close on which was worth more. And then it comes down to which is more work for you. Is it harder or more time consuming to make the lumber or the firewood? And that depends on your situation. It depends on the cost of what you're able to get in your area, what the price you can sell firewood for, what you can sell the lumber for, or how much money you're saving by not buying lumber. So there's a little bit of variation from place to place and person to person. But for me, I'm leaning towards the fact that it's worth it to make the wood, the lumber, but not to nitpick over saving every little piece. But for me, it feels like it's going to make sense to go ahead and cut my lumber out of these logs, but not be particular about salvaging every piece of it into lumber. Because believe it or not, I think I'm going to get more value out of the slab wood. Right now, I want to cut some of this into firewood and try splitting it into more usable sizes with my new splitter. And then we'll have the conversation about the value to me of those two items. If anybody's been wondering how the slab rack is working, fantastic. Some of my ideas are a little bit harebrained. This one is perfect. Phenomenal that only the pieces on the very end on each side fall to the ground. The rest of it, I picked my slab wood up here. I mean, people call me lazy for this, but I'm trying to make it as easy as possible if I'm going to repeat a process multiple times. Now that we have our slab wood, we're going to split that into firewood. Previously, I was weighing, is it worth it to turn this slab wood into firewood? And I said yes. I built the rack, I started cutting it up. That left me big chunks that most people don't want. It's good for outdoor burning and it's good for boilers. But those big chunks I showed you are not going to work good for firewood in someone's house. Partially because they've got a lot of bark on them, but not when I cut it thick, which is what I get criticized for doing. So I put it in the totes. I thought this is like a lower quality firewood. And then I got a splitter that's more efficient. Because I could have split that on my other splitter, but I decided it was too slow. But with this, I don't think it is too slow. I think it's worth doing. Now this is where another part of the conversation comes in. If you're doing this with different species, it changes the math. If you have walnut, like those big pieces of walnut in there, those two bottom ones that are 3 inches thick, I don't know what those are worth, $400 or something? Maybe more in some markets, but those are worth good money. And some species of wood don't make a good firewood. Some don't make a good lumber. So that makes a difference. But if you can split this into regular size chunks and get regular prices for the firewood, that's pretty good. Now here's the part of it I haven't mentioned. Is why is all that wood still in there? It was dry a year ago. That wood's 2 years old. Why do I still have it? Well, it's because there is not a line of people beating down my doors for it. I've made posts on Facebook and stuff and said, hey, I've got wood for sale. Nobody answered. Nobody came. That wood in there has value. It's for sale. I'll end up selling some of it. But it doesn't fly off the shelf like firewood is sold. You list firewood for sale around here, it's sold. And that's a big difference. And a lot of times what people tell me is when there's a flare, I cut that whole flare off to cut the amount I need off of the narrow end of the log. And then by the fat end of the log, I've got a slab like this. They say you could have got a 2x6 that was, 4 foot long or something out of it. And that's true. A 4 foot long 2x6 has some value. Maybe I'm going to build something and I'll need that 2x6. But it doesn't sound that exciting to me to go to the work of stacking it, waiting on it to dry, organizing it, dedicating space to it, and then waiting for the day when I need a short 2x6. It's a matter of, if I'm cutting wood and I don't have a purpose for the wood, when I cut it, I have to figure out what to do with it. So, it's a huge factor in it. Let's split this up and I'll give my final thought on it. One more quick thought on the splitter. I just did a video 2 days ago saying how much I love this splitter, and I do. I got a ton of comments saying the table was too low. And I kind of agree. I wish it had just a little bit taller table. Like if I was 5'8", 5'9", this might be good, but I'm 6'1", and that makes it look shorter than it is. But there's an important piece of information to that, and that is that the company sells this in 2 different heights. And that was on me. When they asked me which version I wanted, I just said, I'll take your base model, the cheapest one, the most basic model. I didn't take the time to find out they had two heights. So that's just on me. Let's get this thing going. Look at that, splitting 4 pieces at once. You just can't do that with a regular splitter. Around here we sell firewood by the rick. A rick is 1/3 of a cord, and I get a rick of wood in this is just a little bit past full. And I split 1/3 of that. So it's like 1/9 of a cord. Very little amount of firewood in one rack full. But one log, all of the slab fit in one full rack, which split very quickly, and it's all usable. So you want to talk about waste. I wasted nothing. I've got 4 nice boards out of my square cant on that log, and those boards will get used. I have a specific purpose for those, a project I'm building. This firewood will be sold quickly. I'll post it that I have firewood. What I have that's dry down there will sell quickly, and then I'll tell people when they call, what I have is green, it's not seasoned. You can season it yourself or burn it green or whatever you want, but this will be sold soon. And you know, I'd be fine if people don't call. I don't really advertise much, but if someone calls and they want this, I'll sell it to them. If not, I'll keep it for next year. But I have no waste in what I'm doing. And I would rather deal with this than deal with a bunch of smaller boards that I don't specifically need for something right now. So, which is better? How should I know? I'm just some guy. I don't have a ton of experience with this. I'm just giving you my observations off the top of my head. But I appreciate you taking time to watch this video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.